Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about 5 firearms rifles that are underrated. And these are firearms that are currently on the market. You can pick them up if you can find them in stock somewhere, but they don't get the attention that they deserve, in my opinion. But before we get started with today's video, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you enjoy the content, just take a moment to click that subscribe button because it helps us out quite a bit. Also, we look forward to your comments down below. We enjoy reading them, but also it helps us with the algorithms. With that being said, let's get started with today's video. Guys, please swing by and check out Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU. They help support us here at the Military Arms channel with products and things like that so we can continue to bring you content. There's a link in the video description down below that'll take you to the Mac blog and website. Please follow that link, and from there you'll find a link to Big Daddy Unlimited and try them out just for 99 cents. You can see what they're all about. In essence, they're just like a big online store that has amazing prices. So please, again, check out BDU. The first rifle I want to show you guys is from Marcolmar, and it's the Spanish CETME L. This is built from a parts kit, but more and more of the parts are being produced here in the United States to produce these rifles domestically. Most of the stuff that you see on this rifle is actually produced right here in the United States. The stocks, both the forend and the butt stock, the pistol grip, the receivers, the cocking tubes, the barrel, just the bolt and carrier and small parts like that are still being used from parts kits that are virgin parts kits that are being used for the internals of these guns. But slowly the guys over at Marcolmar are telling me that they will eventually be able to produce these 100% in the United States. So why have I brought this gun up? Well, we're going to do another video on the variations of this rifle that are out there. I have one of the coolest variations here to show you this afternoon. This one has the SUSAT, the British SUSAT, on top of it. This would have been used by the Spanish Marines. And they have another version of this rifle that has a Stenag mount on it that could use regular Stenag optics, night vision, things like that. But again, we'll get more into this gun in a future video with all of its different variations. But this gun is really underrated. Not enough people out there are aware of them or have shot them so they can appreciate them. They are roller delayed firearms, and it's developed by the same people that developed the original Spanish CETME, which was used by Spanish forces, that was sold to the Germans, that became the HK91 G3. Same folks did this. Now, it's not like the HK93 or 33. It has some internal differences, but it still uses that roller delay system. That makes for a very pleasant shooting rifle. Now, I know if you've shot an HK91, they're anything but pleasant to shoot. They have a very abrupt recoil impulse. The exact opposite is true of the CETME. This thing is just a real pussycat to shoot. It just has, it's almost like shooting a BB gun. It's so mild. The version I have here, again, has that British SUSAT on top of it, but typically for right around $1,200, you can get the standard version in this military green that has just iron sights, and the prices go up from there. They have carbine versions that have a collapsible stock. They have this version, which is a standard rifle version. You can get them with heavy barrels. You can get them in different colors. But the important thing here is the price on these hasn't gone up, mostly because I think people are just kind of unaware of them. So if you go by the Marcolmar website, you'll find them listed in stock. You can click the Buy Now button and have one sent to your local dealer FFL. So I think these represent a really good value for those of you out there looking for a military rifle that is chambered in 223/556. This is something you might want to consider because it's actually a very, very cool gun and a lot of fun to shoot. It does use standard Stenag magazines. They do have Spanish magazines that these rifles were issued with that were steel. They're not the best quality. These guns are actually re-engineered for the geometry of actual Stenag magazines. So these actually work better than the original Spanish mags, although if you do get your hands on some of the original Spanish mags, they should work in the gun as well. The Beretta ARX100 is easily one of the most underrated guns on the US market. I think it ran into problems with the American consumer because, one, it's kind of ugly, and two, you can't really customize it, and Americans are used to customizing their AR-15, swapping out things like the pistol grip. So the gun, you know, is ugly to some folks. It feels and looks like a pregnant guppy. The stock is rather short, even when it's fully extended, and it's all plastic, which turns some people off, but it is 2021 and polymers are in. So it just, for whatever reason, didn't really catch on. And I think that's unfortunate because when you take a look at this gun from a functionality standpoint, it's one of the most reliable rifles I've ever owned. The very first one I owned was the black one, which we ran suppressed for thousands and thousands of rounds, and the gun never hiccuped. We did the early ICE test, the original ICE test on that first black rifle, and it aced that test. The guns are just incredibly robust when it comes to operation. Unfortunately, you have these pick rails out here that you can't take off because underneath them are like shark teeth, so you can't really remove them if you don't like them. It's very thick, which makes for awkward ergonomics again. The stock does fold on the gun, and that's also how you take it apart, but we're not going to get into the disassembly. If you want to see the full video on the ARX100, we already have one out there. But the stock does fold for storage, and again, adjust for length of pull very easily. But the other thing that this thing does that's really unique, especially if you're a left-handed shooter, this may interest you, is that the gun is fully ambi. You don't need tools or anything other than the tip of a bullet to change the function of the gun from right hand to left hand use. The selector levers are identical on both sides of the gun. The bolt stop bolt release is right here by your index finger, and it's present on both sides of the gun. Magazine release is present on both sides of the gun. The charging handle can be moved from one side of the gun to the other simply by locking the bolt to the rear. Sliding it over and pulling the charging handle through on the other side. And now the charging handle's on the opposite side of the gun, and I'll show you while I'm firing it how quickly I can change it from right-hand ejection to left-hand ejection. So the gun is really, really cool for left-handed shooters. If you're a military collector, this is an actual military firearm. It's being used by the Italian forces. It's just a really, really neat gun. I actually like the Flat Dark Earth quite a bit. Now, I picked this gun up for a steal of $899 when we were traveling. I think it was Bud's Gun Shop that Jason and I found this gun at. And so you can find them for really good deals, but now the prices have creeped back up to $1,500 or more because of the current market conditions. But still, they're a better value than things like the Sig Virtus, which is going for $3,000, sometimes $4,000 on places like Gunbroker right now. So if you're looking for a good 5.56 rifle, this is something to consider, given the functionality and the reliability of it, and Beretta is just a big name. It does use standard Stenag magazines. I'm going to go ahead and fire 5 rounds, then I'm going to show you how I can swap the ejection of the gun from one side to the other. All right, put the weapon on safe. I'm going to take the tip of a bullet and just push on a little button back here. Make sure I got it all the way over. There we go. And now, after I push that button with the tip of a bullet, it's going to eject out the other side of the gun. How cool is that? You saw, without tools, I swapped the charging handle around. I switched the side the gun ejects out of with the tip of a bullet. That's pretty darn cool functionality, and still they can be had for a fairly reasonable price given market conditions. Another rifle out there that a lot of you may not give much consideration to is something that I have come to really enjoy shooting, and that's the Robinson Armament XCR. This is the rifle I went deer hunting with this year. I originally had picked this up from Brownells in 5.56, and then later picked up a 6.8 SPC conversion kit for it. And that's one of the things that really makes this rifle shine, is the simplicity of field stripping, the simplicity of swapping out calibers, and the fact that these guns are made right here in the United States. And this gun was actually a SCAR submission. And from what I've read about this gun in the SCAR trials is that the reason it was kicked from the trials was because when it was submitted, it wasn't submitted with a blank firing attachment, and that's why it was kicked out of the trials. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the story that goes along with this rifle. I do know that it was developed presumably for those SCAR trials. So it's a really interesting gun, and we have a full video out there on it. Taking this thing apart is incredibly simple to do. Some people have said, I've seen in comments, that it's an AR-AK hybrid, and I don't see it as being an AR-15 in any way, other than it has a pistol grip that's from an A2. It uses a Stenag magazine and can chamber a 5.56. Other than that, it's not an AR, and as far as an AK, the AK wasn't the first one to use a long stroke gas piston or a rotating bolt. So I really don't see it as being any type of a hybrid. It's really kind of its own rifle, and that's one of the things that really endears me to it. Now, as a 6.8, this gun packs a lot of punch. So, you know, a 6.8 is a 6.8 bullet that's in a case that will actually fit into a, it's a special magazine, but a Stanag sized magazine that would go into a standard AR-15 mag well. And so it was developed to add, power to the AR-15, and I believe it was something that the military was considering at one time, and that's how or why it was originally developed. But regardless of why or how the 6.8 came into being, I love it in this rifle, and this is the rifle this year, or this past year, that I took deer with. On the end of it, I have an OSS suppressor. It does have an adjustable gas system. You don't need to use a zero back pressure can on it for it to function reliably, because you can adjust it. Again, as I've already mentioned, it's a long stroke gas piston that's in here. It has ambi controls for the bolt stop, bolt release, which is right here by your index finger. Push up to lock it, push down to release it, and that tab is present on both sides of the firearm. You have the magazine release over here, and then over here you have a magazine release. The selector lever is ambi. The only thing that's not movable is the charging handle, which is on the left-hand side of the receiver. You can get this gun, obviously, with all sorts of different barrel weights and profiles and lengths, and you can get little tiny stubby SBRs, and they're available in pistols and all sorts of different configurations if you go by the Robinson Armament website and check them out. So on top, I have my primary arms optic, and again, this thing, what really impressed me was the ability for this thing on a cold bore to consistently put that bullet right to the point of aim. And that's the reason why I took it deer hunting last year, and why I might use it again this coming year. That, or I may use a 308, we'll see. Great shooting rifle, very mild recoil with the 6.8. Yeah, easily one of my favorites. Another favorite of mine is the Galil ACE, and you just don't see a bunch of folks in social media talking about the gun, but I think they should. This is probably one of the highest quality AK rifles out there. The gun has all the modern features. You have the adjustable stock for length of pull, which also folds to the side for storage. It has the tried and true Galil /AK type action. I'm not going to break the gun down again. We have full videos on these rifles out there already, so we're not going to rehash that. But, it has that machined receiver, AK internals reliability with the charging handle over here on the left-hand side of the gun. And you'll notice is when the charging handle runs, it has a little trap door that follows it. All that's designed to keep debris and gunk from getting into the action of the AK. So imagine an AK that's completely sealed up, that doesn't even have that signature slot over here in the top cover, which would allow globs of crud to get into the trigger mechanism. The Galil doesn't have that. This is a sealed up AK, which makes for an extremely reliable gun. It also has a Picatinny rail that runs all the way down the gas tube. You have underneath the handguards 1913 rail sections that go all the way around. It has iron sights, which are, in traditional Galil fashion and Valmet fashion. You have the rear sight on the top cover back here, and then you have a front post up here that has tritium in it. And on top, I have a Mepro Light red dot sight, which is actually a green dot sight, and it's one of the programmable ones that we picked up from our friends over at Optics Planet. We'll talk more about this sight in the future. It's kind of an interesting sight, has some interesting functionality. So the other thing that's really cool about the Galil is the fact that you have the AK style safety over here, but also with the Galil, you have the safety mechanism by the shooter's thumb. Now, of course, this favors a right-handed shooter, but it's really, really nice. Now, you also have the mag release right here, and you also have a mag release over here, and the Galils now, of course, use regular Stanag magazines. This also has a bolt stop, which I'm hitting with my index finger right now, so I can pull the bolt to the rear and push up on it, and it'll lock the bolt to the rear. Push down, charges the weapon. So it's that little nub right there. Really, really great guns. And a lot of people think that they're ugly because the polymer lower. There's people will complain about, again, the aesthetics, but they're overlooking the functionality of the gun. These things really haven't gone up much in price. If anything, they're going for MSRP right now when you can find them in stock. So it's another good value out there that if you're looking for a 223 or 5.56 rifle, this is something you should give a lot of consideration to, especially in today's market. Really, really cool rifle. Love the AKs, love the ACE. Another rifle that was kind of a flash in the pan, you don't see people talking about it much. I think it got more traction as a pistol than it did a rifle, and that's the Bren 2. And that's what I'm holding here in my hands. The Bren 2 is, I don't know, I would say a SCAR competitor just because of the layout of the gun, and it's an evolution from the original Bren 805, which is a gun that I really liked quite a bit. The Bren 2 changed things considerably on the internals and improved things considerably in terms of how the bolt is held to the rear and stuff like that, non-reciprocating charging handle. Things that people didn't like about the original 805 were rectified with the Bren 2, and it is, again, an actual military service rifle. But I don't see a whole lot of people in social media talking about these, and when you do see people talking about them, they're talking about the 7.62x39 version that, as we've documented, has some problems. Now, as of the recording of this video, CZ, to my knowledge, has not made a public statement yet about the problems with the 7.62x39 firearms, both the pistol and, I don't know if they ever offered it in a rifle, I'd have to check, but definitely with the pistols. And again, that's something we documented those issues right here on the Military Arms channel, and we were kind of hoping that, CZ would speak up, but so far, to my knowledge, they haven't said anything. But that doesn't take away from the 5.56 version of the pistol and the rifle. These have been nothing but reliable for me, and they're actually really cool, well-designed firearms. There's a couple of quirks that you may not like about the gun. Probably the biggest quirk with this firearm, I think, is the fact that the stock has ever so slightly a little bit of play in it. And that gets annoying when you go to shoulder it. You can just feel it move just a little bit up. But aside from that, the stock does fold to the side. It also is adjustable for length of pull, and when you fully extend it, there's quite a bit of length there, so even somebody with my ape-type arms, there's more than enough stock there. I run it shorter than its full extension. It does have the monolithic rail that goes across the top, well, at least to here anyway, and then you have a handguard that is separate from the rail of the receiver, but it continues on out. So yeah, it's lightweight, aluminum upper, lots of polymer in the stock, and the pistol grip, the whole lower magazine, well fire control, that whole area is all polymer. So it's a nice mix of aluminum and polymer, which gives it a nice light feel. The recoil impulse is really, really good on it. Uses standard Stanag magazines. Has a non-reciprocating charging handle that you can move to the other side of the gun. It has ambi controls, ambi mag release on both sides. So, and then you have a bolt stop, bolt release inside the trigger guard. So again, it's really good for left-handed shooters. It only ejects out the right-hand side, but you shouldn't get brass in the face because of the brass deflector. So if you're a left-handed shooter, this would be another good choice for you. But the recoil impulse is what I like most about this gun because it's very, very mild. Only had 5 rounds loaded. Boy, ammunition's getting tight. And that's not a joke. I mean, it really is. We're down to firing apparently 5 rounds per magazine now. So anyway, these are 5 firearms I think that you guys should probably take a look at if you're in the market for a firearm and you're looking for something out there that might be a little bit different, that might not be really, really jacked up in price. Pretty much all the firearms I've shown you this afternoon can be found for at least MSRP if you shop around a little bit, but I understand the market's really, really hard right now. It's really hard to find guns and ammunition. There's certain firearms out there that are being scalped for ridiculous prices, and I would highly recommend you don't take part in that type of panic buying, because if you keep buying the ammunition and the guns that people are scalping, they're just going to keep doing it. It's going to feed the machine that's never going to end. So let's get those prices back down by not playing into that game. Guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link down below. We've built a great community over there on Patreon. You get direct access to me. I answer all private communications. You get early access to videos like this one. So again, please swing by and check it out and consider becoming part of that family. Right here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Click that join button and you can support us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.